Joining us now, she's the head coach at Texas State, our good friend Ricci Woodard, who fresh off another good season and getting set for this 2023 season. I think it's a 23rd season now there, right? I mean, that's time flies there over there.
It does seem to fly. It's funny, even my own two children yesterday were saying, "Why do the days seem to go so fast?" I said, "Oh, just wait. The years seem to go faster." So, yeah, it does surprise me when I think back that this has been a 23-year journey already.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun though. That means you've had a lot of success. How do you feel you've changed as a coach today than you were, say, when you started in the industry coaching 20 some years ago?
If you ask my alumni, they would say I'm a lot nicer, but I would just like to say I'm probably a lot smarter, to be honest. It's I was thinking a little while ago, I started this whole coaching journey at 22 in the high school system, and now here I am. I'm not going to say how old I am now, but obviously you can kind of figure that out. Um, so it's been quite the journey. There's no doubt, but I would definitely like to think that I'm a whole lot smarter about the way I do things now. Just in trying to lead young women to become the people they're supposed to be when they get out of here. So I think has always been my goal. Hasn't I don't know when I was 22 to 30 that I thought much about that. I think I thought about winning, and that was about it. So I would probably say that's probably the way it's changed the most is that the impacts I finally realized I probably do have on these young women. And there was a point in there, I think it was a lot of impact. I'm not sure in this day and age we have as much impact as coaches, but I do think that's probably the biggest mindset change I've had.
How have you been able to adapt to the student athletes today versus back then? All the changes within the sport, obviously as college athletes, not just in softball but college athletics. How have you been able to adapt and adjust to it during the times?
Well, again, I think some of it's just trying to figure out what's going to work for each group. I don't know that I've adapted real well. A lot of these people around here still call me the old school coach, so I don't know how much I've adapted or changed. I've locked my team out of the locker room this year, so again, I'm not sure that I've adapted real well. At times, there's things that still I have very high expectations, and I don't know that I'm ever going to be able to change that. So I think you just kind of roll with what you have. I will say this, Eric, I've tried to keep somebody young on my staff every year that can relate a little bit better and probably help me understand a little bit better. That has been probably one of my main goals with my staffs is to make sure I have somebody that's semi close to their age to help navigate their world.
Yeah, how's that Scott Woodard guy too? He probably he kind of keeps things in line too, right?
Yeah, he's not the young one on the staff though. Don't tell him I said that. He's done well. It's been nice having him here. He just has a wealth of knowledge that I probably haven't been able to have and keep in my coaching staff. So, not only do I have to have my own family here, but I also have somebody with a ton of knowledge and teaches the game as well as anybody I've seen.
Let's speak about your staff. You might obviously Scott been to start staff. Josh Trevino is on your staff. You got Danny Elder's a grad assistant. You mentioned that keeping a young one on the staff, and there. Just talk about your philosophy when you envision your staff and their roles.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that you got to have somebody that teaches, that maybe be a little bit more on the head coaching side of things. Also, he gets the whole picture. He's been a head coach, he's been an assistant, he's been an athletic director, so he kind of gets the whole program. Encompasses the whole thing. And then, Josh was with me for 5 years as a manager here in his undergraduate. He came and sought me out, and I just watched him grow as a person and as an individual. And he went to Arizona State for a year and was their grad assistant for a year. And then when Paige McDuffie decided to get out of coaching last year, I thought it's his job to either win or lose is kind of how I approached him with it. I made him convince me that he could handle it, obviously, because the only thing he's probably missing is a little bit of the being in charge experience. He was here with Kat Osterman, he was here with Paige McDuffie, so he's got plenty of pitching knowledge. And he's a sponge. He loves to learn. So, and then he's young and close to their age and can kind of help me understand the way they think sometimes, although I'm not sure that he agrees with it all the time, but he at least can help me navigate it. And then, Danny Elder and Morgan Rackle both have helped us. I just think, one, their experience to their, sometimes when I'm talking to them, I feel like I'm talking to my team still. So it kind of helps me, navigate, and they can kind of keep me up to date on what's going on within the program sometimes that I'm not aware of.
When you look back at last year, you won 38 games, got to the Sun Belt Championship game, really finished the year strong. We're hot at the end of the year. When you think back to last year, what comes to your mind?
Four major losses that kept us out of regionals.
Yeah.
I think that's really the best way for me to put it. We got hot at probably the right time, but it wasn't enough. We gave up some key losses that ended up killing us, in my opinion. And so this group, I think, understands that the importance of every game now, instead of we want to make the goal to beat ULL all the time, but I think we understand that maybe that wasn't what kept us out of a regional tournament. It was some of the other losses.
You ended up being one of the first four out. Did you know going in? Did you feel like, we're not going to get in? Were you hopeful? Like, take me through that process after that championship game and that tough feeling of watching a selection show, wondering what's at stake there. But it sounds like you kind of had an idea going in.
Yeah, I think, as coaches, especially doing this as long as I have, you kind of start to get the feeling. I just didn't feel like we had taken care of business in the month of March like we needed to, just to be honest. I think finally we decided to go, and we did, but it just took us. We were just slow getting started. So I think you're sitting there watching that selection show, and I made them sit and watch it, even though I pretty much had a feeling we weren't going to be in. But for the first time in a long time, I made them sit and watch it. And one, you hope they remember that feeling as we start in February of this year, that it doesn't take till May to get that feeling again. But it was disappointment. I think you nailed it when you said we got hot at the end. Unfortunately, it was just a little too late, and but at that point, everybody was pretty fired up and excited to go, and then all of a sudden you're done. So I think that was tough. But I think it was a good experience to have to sit there and not see your name come up on that screen, and just kind of feed that hunger in you again.
Was it a thing where you just, your team it took a while to find themselves and you found yourself, but maybe just too late? I mean, how would you describe what changed that got you really playing at a high level there in the second half of the year, where I think maybe if the season was extended a week or two longer, that would have been maybe enough to get you into the tournament. You were really playing at a high level at the end.
Yeah, I think, you could blame it on a lot of things. If I knew the answer to that, Eric, I would have, told him that in February instead of April. I don't know. I think it was just a new group, and it was trying to find some leaders that would go and then go in the right direction. I think we were very inconsistent in a whole lot of areas early on, and I think that's what killed us, is our inconsistency in every area. One day we would pitch well and not have any offense. When the next day we would have offense and not pitch well. And so, some days we didn't, at the beginning of the season, we didn't play great defense. So, I think it was just a ever evolving, trying to find out who we were going to be, and if we could ever figure out how to be consistently that. So, I think towards the end, we finally figured it out. Which, as a coach, you'd like to call that a successful season. I'm still not sure that we were at the top of our game. And that we probably had a group that could have been in a regional tournament, in my opinion. We just didn't take care of business when we needed to. But so it's hard to decide if that was a successful season or not. I'm just, it's, as a coach, you want to watch teams grow and become who they are and figure it out, which they did. But I would like them to figure it out about 3 weeks earlier, to be honest.
But maybe it could benefit you this year, team, by learning experience, right? These are 18 to 22-year-olds, right? They're not robots. So as much as we would like, coach, you can't, sometimes you got to learn it on the field themselves. You can't show them the road. They have to learn it on themselves. And the way you finish, can that be a benefit, especially to the returners from a confidence standpoint, and knowing, hey, we were one of the first four out. We were that close. If we take care of business, maybe that carries over to this year, that momentum.
Yeah, that's what you hope, just experience wise, even. We had a lot of new people on the field last year. And most of those people are back this year. So, there's not too many gray areas, when you look at the lineup this year. I think last year there wasn't a lot either, but a lot of those kids were new. We had a lot of new people in new positions, and maybe not necessarily new to the program, but new to their positions even too. We took a kid like Hannah Earls from left field and put her, at shortstop for the first time. And, Sarah Vanderford had played second the year before. Now she's playing third. So, we did a lot of moving things around. And then we had three key transfers that we knew were going to have to come in and try to help us right away with Anna Jones and Claire Ginder and Carson Pierce. We knew those three were going to have to come in and be strong at the beginning. And I think, their games all got better as the year went on too, which is probably why we did. But so, I think there was a lot of moving pieces to that deal last year that, at the end, when you look back, you can see why it took us so long to kind of get our groove. So you're hoping, yes, that pays off for this year. Pretty much all those spots are back. We're going to add one or two new ones in there somewhere, I think, but for the most part this year and next year, we don't graduate one kid this year. Because all my COVID players say that they're going to play their 5th year next year. So there's not one leaving the program this year. So if we're not real good this year, we should be pretty dang good next year.
It sounds to me like it was one of those deals where the old cliche is you got to learn how to crawl before you walk last year. It sounds like you learned a lot about your team there, and they learned about themselves a little bit. That again, you hope it pays off this year in the next season or two.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's obviously the hope. That's why I say, maybe it was a successful season. Obviously, as a coach, I'd like to be, playing in the last 64 standing. But there was some definite successful points to it.
Well, let's talk about this year's team, and obviously it starts in the circle. That's what's really been the identity of your program. And you mentioned some of the returners. Obviously, people know about Jessica Mullins and stuff. Just talk about your staff as a whole this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody's, always on the hunt for Jessica Mullins. She brings some of that on because of her tenacity and her just pitching style in general. Is that she's an aggressive kid, and I'm going to go right at you, and we're not trying to change that. The key is, have we added enough to her to still make her successful this year? Will be the question, because obviously she's the one that everybody's looking for when they come out of the gate. Tori McCann, who ended up kind of off the pitching mound last year with some injuries and still ended up playing first base and hitting for us at the end of the year, but she's back on the mound and really had a phenomenal fall. The best I've seen her look here. So I'm excited to add her back to our pitching repertoire for sure. Carson Pierce looked really good this fall. Obviously when she's on, she's as dangerous as anybody. So we just got to keep her attacking the zone. But those three kids, I think, will pitch the majority of the innings for us. We got a couple of other ones younger still. Bailey Welsh, who fought an injury all last year too, and we tried to use her at the end of the season, but didn't really work. So she threw some really successful innings for us this fall. If we can keep her healthy, that would help because it gives us a left-handed arm. And again, I think that's going to be the majority of our pitching staff right there. But they're a fun group to watch, even the young ones that we've just added. Presley's when she's on and attacking the zone, she's as good as anybody too. It's just a matter of keeping her consistent. So they're going to be a fun group to watch.
Deepest staff, one of the deeper staffs you've had there. Obviously, yeah. Jessica, obviously, you mentioned obviously the accomplishment she's done, 27 wins last year. It speaks for itself, but it sounds like you like the depth that you have this year.
I do. It's the first time in a long time I felt like we really could go 3 deep pretty easily. And if we can keep Bailey Welch healthy too, she can close out every game for us. She threw 2 or 3 successful innings against Texas. Where they didn't touch her. It's kind of a nasty little dropping thing that is hard to hit, especially if Mullins is just throwing 5 innings against you. So, she's a nice contrast. But yeah, I think Carson Pierce and Tori McCann and Mullins give us 3 legit starters that could probably start on a lot of ball teams.
Let's talk about your offense. You hit 281 as a team. You returned a lot of the good nucleus from that offense. Speak of your offense and some of the leaders that you have offensively, the returner, and then maybe some of the new faces that maybe could contribute to it.
Right. Well, you talk about a Sierra Trahan, who was freshman of the year last year. She's one of those tools that you love at the top of the lineup because she can do everything. She can hit, she can bunt, she can run, she can slap. Which is probably why she was freshman of the year. She's hard to get out when she's on. She's a fun kid to watch because she goes hard every day in practice, just like it's game day. There's no difference for her. And to me, that's what makes her successful, is she treats every day the same. So she's going to be a fun one to have around still. Obviously Hannah Earls is one of the fastest players I've ever coached. When she gets on base, it's almost like getting a triple because you can you can run with her every pitch if you wanted to. It's just keeping her in an aggressive mindset. Obviously, Sarah Vanderford is, a continued, great part of the lineup that someday I'm going to really miss having, but not yet, thank goodness. And I think when you add JJ Smith from Texas into that mix, you got a pretty good top 4 of the lineup right there. The plan is Anna Jones is just going to continue to get better and better. The more games she plays in, I felt like she did last year too. I think those 5 kids give us a pretty legit chance to score a lot of runs at the top of the lineup. We added a freshman that I think is going to help us, Kat Zarati. We added her late, and I think she's got a chance. She can stay out of her own way. I guess it's probably the best way to say that as a freshman. But she's a good looking athlete with a ton of power. I'm hoping to be able to use her some this year. Claire Ginder, they're both probably in the same race, to be honest. It's going to be whichever one is consistent from day to day. And then, you go to our catchers, and I'm not sure, Carmen Bass, another freshman we added that, is probably the best offensive freshman we've added. She's just what you call a pure hitter. That's, girls are like, how does she do that? I'm like, yeah, she's one of those that's a Sarah Vanderford that just hits. And as a coach, you try to stay out of their way a little bit. Yeah. So we're hoping she can play some first base and maybe, catch for us also. I think the catching spot's probably my biggest concern. I'm not going to lie, Eric, because those are the 2 seniors I graduated last year, caught a lot of ball games for us over the last few years. So, to me, that's the spot where we've got to just continue to figure out who's going to be the best mix that day with the pitcher we have. And hope to get a little bit of offense out of them too. So right. Piper Randolph's another kid that, I can't see somebody beating her out in center field right now. I could be wrong before it's all said and done, but it's just another one of those kids that if she's on, she's unbelievably good. We just got to find a consistent Piper Randolph day in and day out. I think, sometimes I think she's trying to do too much with, the bunting, slapping, hitting. She's a kid that wants to be good at everything, which is real hard at this level. Yeah. So maybe by this point, in her junior year, we can hone in on a little bit more consistency out of her. But man, I tell you, as I think I've already stated, this is the fastest group of players I've ever had.
Fastest. Wow. That's
fastest.
That's a strong comments there. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Athletic there. I want to ask you about the catching position. That's fascinating. It's always a unique position because they have so many responsibilities, as you mentioned. When you evaluate that position as time goes, how much of it is how they kind of catch a certain pitcher? How do they handle a staff? Because I know some coaches are different. Some are okay with catchers having, pitchers have their own catcher, etc. Some want catchers to coach the entire staff. Do you have a philosophy either way, or you're pretty flexible on that?
I'm pretty flexible. I want to do what's going to be best for the team that day, and so I try not to pair them up individually with pitchers. I think it always kind of sooner or later it might work out that way, even if I don't want it to. Where you can definitely see some catchers are better with some pitchers. Obviously, with Carson Pierce and her down ball, we have to have somebody behind the plate that can handle her. The rest of the group, I think we could probably go any direction with, and everybody would be okay. Some of the things I asked the pitchers and they're into the fall meetings, and none of them had a real preference. I make them kind of pick a starting catcher, but they didn't have a real preference between the 3 kids that we're using back there. So that's nice to know, at least. But it's a wide variety. If I could take all 3 of those and put them into one catcher, we'd be really good. But they all have their strong points in different areas, and so I think it's going to be a day-to-day pick on who we put behind the plate.
And that's the beauty of competition, right? You're going to bring out the best of them, and it'll play itself out however it plays itself out. But it's good to have options. It's better than not having any options, right? It's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
Let me ask you about the Sun Belt. Some new members, Southern Miss, Marshall, which I believe you're going to Marshall. I don't know if you've ever been to Marshall or not before.
Never.
So that's a new experience. And then JMU is joining the league. Just talk about the new look Sun Belt this year.
Yeah, I thought the Sun Belt was already tough enough. um, yeah, and it just got tougher. Yeah, in my opinion, those are three solid programs. JMU obviously year in year out has been pretty consistent. Southern Miss and Marshall, I think, have been a little bit more, depending on the year. Um, so I think, but you're getting three solid programs that are only going to make the Sun Belt better, in my opinion, all three of them. So it's going to be a fun, and yeah, I've never been to any of the three places. So in the next 2 years, I guess I'll get to see a little bit of everywhere. But yeah, I'm excited. I think anytime you get to play great competition, kind of change the dynamics of things, where we're going an East and a West division and crossing over to play some other people too. But it does definitely change the dynamics of what this conference has looked like already, and it's already been a fairly strong conference.
Oh, you read my mind, because that was going to be my question to you. For those who don't follow on a daily basis, how do their additions change the league as far as from a scheduling standpoint, and overall, and how much of an adjustment is it for you to learn three new members? Is it a big adjustment or not that big?
Um, I don't know that it's that big of an adjustment, because again, they're all three programs that you've heard of.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've heard of all of them for different reasons. So, I don't think we'll spend a lot more time digging into those than we do anybody else the weekend that we're playing them. But we did take the league, and we went from 9 series of playing everybody down to 8 series, where we play, our own side, our west side, each, and then we're going to cross over and play the other side 3 times. And we kind of went by an average RPI over the last 2 years for our crossovers. So I don't know that I like it 100%, because it means you never have an easy weekend. Is what it means. Not that there was an easy weekend anyway, but now you for sure don't. So our higher RPI teams are going to play the higher on the other side for at least this 2 year span, and then we'll figure out who they are after this 2 years. But it'll be an interesting concept, because it's something we debated about, and what to do and how to do it. And but I think the Sun Belt in general was pretty set on going east to west divisions in every sport.
That's interesting, especially the scheduling formula. I'm sure part of it is to try to help get as many teams into the tournament, like a couple years ago, where it was a 4-bid league, right? And so you're trying to help
Right.
the mathematics on that. I mean, and I've talked to a lot of the coaches in the league. I think you all believe, as a coaches in the league, that with the members now in, you could be one of the top 5 leagues in the sport, right? That's what you're all shooting for, and believe that you could be, with all the passionate fan base, and being in the South in most regions, that there's potential here to be a power conference in softball here.
Yeah, we've stayed right on the edge of that. The whole time I've been in the Sun Belt, we've been right on the edge of
Yeah.
that power. We've been 6, we've been 7, we've been 6, we've been 8. So I think we've lived on the edge of that. Getting into the top 5 this whole time. And so yeah, I think adding these three can only help us, because again, most of the time their RPIs are in a spot where they're going to help most of us when we're playing each other. So we've changed the conference tournament and gone to a single elimination conference tournament there with everybody in. So that'll change the looks of things at the end of the year, I think, a little bit for us too, where we're not beating up on each other at the end.
Couple national topics for you quick. I want to hit you up on them, your thoughts. Replay, that's now become a big part in the postseason. A lot of conferences are now even adding it during the season to get familiar with it for the postseason, conference tournaments, etc., NCAAs. What's your thoughts on replay, and where are we as far as the Sun Belt is with instant replay?
Yeah, I love it. The last 2 years we did it in our conference tournament, and that was the only place we did it. And then, postseason. But yeah, we added it 2 years ago in our conference tournament. This year, it's every conference game has to have it. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that can only elevate our conference also, because there's so many of our bottom leagues that didn't get the exposure, game wise that I do. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but almost all of my home games are put on ESPN Plus. And so we get that exposure. Now with people having to do cameras for replay, then they might as well broadcast. It's yeah, so I think it's going to help us all the way across. They have to do it with 2 cameras this year and 4 cameras next year. So yeah, I think it's just going to help our sport in the Sun Belt overall, is what I'm excited about. But I also think it helps because you can go ask an umpire to review it, and then everybody moves on. You're not still 2 innings later as coaches griping about that play that you think you were right on, and the
Right.
umpires are still telling you they were right on. So, for me as a coach, I think it's helped because I can just move on. It's like, okay, then, it's whether we were right or wrong, either way, we can move on.
Right. It's a peace of mind. And the fact you're going to have it in the conference games this year, I think that's huge too, because I know some coaches in other leagues were telling me one of the challenges was not having replay during the season. Then all of a sudden you're in the conference tournament, the NCAA. It's like, wait, what? How do I use this replay? Now you're going to be even more comfortable, more
Right.
familiar with it by the time you get to postseason. I think that's huge.
Right. No, there's no doubt. That first year especially, I probably didn't use it as well as I should have in the conference
Right.
tournament. There's a couple plays later after the fact I thought, man, I should have reviewed that, but I didn't because it just didn't come to mind. As the tournament went on, I got better at it. But probably the first 2 games, I got hosed on it twice where the call got changed
Yeah.
against me. And then it started making me think, okay, I need to use those, more that are even just generally close because two of those or one of those two, I didn't think would get reversed and it got reversed. I was like, well, that makes me think I need to be using it more. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No,
it's interesting though. You're right.
No, and I think it's great too because I mean the Sun Belt obviously has a deal with ESPN, so a lot of your games are on ESPN Plus, especially the conference and non-conference games. That's also a big boost to help not only with technology and the replay, but obviously exposure for the league too. That's another aspect of this that I think is a big positive for the league as a whole.
Yeah, our last contract didn't have any softball games that were required to do. That's why, shout out to my university and those that did.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of years in there that I had more on than baseball did here. Maybe it's just the way our schedules worked out, but pretty much as soon as basketball season's over here, they do a really good job of getting us out and broadcasting our games. And so, that's been one of our big pushes in our head coaches meetings at the end of every year is we got to get this for everybody. This can only help us all. So it has been one of our big pushes. And again, I think adding the instant replay to everything is going to, I think that automatically changes the camera thought process. So you might as well broadcast since you have them.
absolutely. I mean, I think the exposure has brought this sport to being a national sport.
Right.
Which is why the other interesting thing is volleyball women's soccer this fall has experimented with seeding 32 teams. 1 through 8 in 4 brackets. And the reason they're doing it is to create more balance in their
Okay.
brackets, trying to eliminate some of the, hey, we're gonna bust this team geography wise there, and that's why they're there instead of they're trying to seed it well. We'll see how the experiment goes.
Okay.
But I thought of you because look, 2 years ago you were sent bus to Austin when maybe you should have been somewhere else. So you have some experience. So I'm curious your thoughts on this proposal, this 30 seating 32 teams. Is that something you think softball should look into, or do you like it the way it is?
It's not something I put a whole lot of time into. I'll just be honest. I think our best chance was the year we got sent to UCLA.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? So, because you talk about, geographically, that was just tough. It's a 2-hour time difference. You're in a huge city. You're trying to navigate places you've never been. So to me, that was worse than getting sent to Austin. I'll be honest. So I
Interesting.
try not to put a lot of time and effort into thinking about it because either way, you're going to have to go figure it out and figure out how to put your best team out on the field with all of the outside issues that are going on in the middle of regionals too. So I think, I think it'd be good not to just have to send us to Austin or A&M or Baylor. But I've been pretty lucky here. We've been to Alabama recently. We've been to UCLA. Obviously we've played at Baylor and A&M in Texas too, but I never felt like I just got sent to a regional spot that was close. I'll be honest.
No, that's
Um,
true. That's a good point. I didn't think about the time zone with right because the UCLA one that year had to be weird when you saw that. You probably were like confused, like what? Right? Like that had to be like that was probably more shocking when you found out. Like, wait, we're going to UCLA? Like we're
right.
that had to be a unique selection night for you there.
Yeah, we were the 2 seed. So I'm like, we're the 2 seed crowd, going across the country to kind of change our entire, mix. We're playing at midnight, our time. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing was weird. It was tough to navigate.
No, that's a great perspective. I didn't think about that because, right, one of the positives, I guess, playing at Austin is you're familiar with the surroundings.
Right.
Whereas you travel, you're not as familiar. So there's got to give and take on both sides and all this. That's a great perspective. I didn't think of that. Um, last thing for you, obviously, their schedule. Talk about your philosophy from a non-conference scheduling standpoint. I think you're opening with Wichita State among their hosting a tournament there, which that's a wow. Like that's gonna be exciting. That's a marquee matchup right off the bat. So you're never been shy to challenge your team where you're scheduling.
Yeah, I think especially now with the Sun Belt getting so much tougher too, you don't have to go out and schedule a huge, tough schedule like I used to have to when I started this career and we were in the Southland Conference, or we just didn't have those opponents to help us out at the end. And so we had to really make sure that we overloaded, at the beginning of the season. I feel like now I can do a little bit of everything. And I like playing tough opponents because I think it tells us, what it's going to be like at the end of the year. Where you better show up and get after it. But I do think there's so much more parity in softball that I'm not sure that there's, a lot of people that you think aren't going to be a tough opponent end up being a really tough opponent. Probably Wichita State was a prime example of that in the past. So, we probably are too to some degree. People probably get surprised sometimes when we sneak up and beat you. But I think that, I got lucky this year and somehow got to host 3 tournaments at home. Last year I couldn't host 1 tournament. Nobody wanted to come. So I'm not real sure. Again, I don't know the rhyme or reason. But it will be nice to be at home and have people, like Kansas and Colorado State and, Wichita State obviously is great to have that opening weekend. South Dakota, South Dakota State, I got a pretty good group in there where I'm pretty excited about, seeing where we're at in the month of February. And then as we get out of February, obviously, I always put the Baylors and the Texases and, we're going to go to Texas. And I did tell them I would only play Alabama once and them once in their tournament. I'm like, I'll come, but I'm not playing 5 games and against, I don't need to play Texas twice and Alabama twice in the tournament. So we're going to play Wisconsin twice, which again is, should be a great matchup for us.
It's another NCAA tournament team there. That's a stacked tournament too. That's a great field. That's a regional type tournament there.
Yeah, that'd be good for all of us. I think it'd be good for all 4 of us, no doubt. And then it's the weekend before we open conference, so I think it puts us in a pretty good spot. I actually like this year's schedule as well as I probably liked any I've put together, and it just worked out well for us. We're only going to travel one time, before conference, which I felt like we needed to do to get on the road a little bit and see what we're doing. So, and I try to go back east just because that's the way we're going to travel. So just to try to, again, you talk about, being familiar with where you're going. It's easier to go east to me because that's what we're going to do anyway. And plus you go west and you get the time change and everything else. And that's just not the way we usually go anyway. So except for that one UCLA trip that was random. So, I think it's a pretty good setup. We're going to go play at A&M again this year. I think that there's not an opponent in the area that I would shy away from playing. I just don't feel like I have to play them all the time now because our Sun Belt Conference is a lot tougher.
But you have so many options too in the state with the quality of depth in the there's a lot to pick from, really. Like you can't play them all. Like literally, but it's a great luxury to have in that great state. We've talked about it in the past, the great state in Texas and of softball and the passion and the talent level and all levels and just the programs. It's a nice luxury to have to help you maybe be flexible, help you on the scheduling front.
Yeah, it is. Because again, you're right. People start calling me in August. I'm like, my schedule's already full. I'm like, I live in the middle of Texas. I can play, probably 50 games right here in the state of Texas if I wanted to.
Right.
Just between different conferences, we could do a whole lot of things. But yeah, you're right. It's nice. I mean, even Texas Tech's, returning a trip here for a doubleheader this year that we went there 2 years ago for a doubleheader. So, it's nice to be able to kind of use the wide range of everybody. I mean, you can go from the bottom to Corpus Christi to the top to Lubbock. So, it's kind of fun to see exactly where things are across the whole state from year to year.
I'll fill in the blank. We will accomplish our goals that we have internally if we do blank. What are a couple of keys there?
That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one. Obviously we're still trying to figure out how to get to the College World Series here. Mm-hmm. I try not to make that the end all be all goal, but I feel like we got a pretty good group this year that's going to return next year. And, I'd like to give this a run for their money this year and next year for sure. How far we can get this year, I think will help us on what happens next year when they're, next year I'll graduate 9 seniors. So, I think again, this year I would like to start out a lot faster and a lot stronger than we did last year. And if we can do that, if we can put that start, then I think the finish will be really well. But, to just kind of fill in the blank there, I would at least like to see this team get to a super regional. I just would. I think they have the capabilities to.
Well, in the sport now, it could happen. I mean, JMU obviously has shown the template. Their run to the World Series a couple years ago. UCF last year made the run. They hosted a regional. I mean, that's the other thing, too, is you could put maybe your position to host as well, especially with the strength of this league. That's the other avenue. If you win the right games, not only can you make the tournament, maybe put yourself in position to host as well, as now more schools are able to host.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think again, the parity's gotten huge. We just got to keep trying to keep up, and that's hard to do year in and year out at a mid-major school. But I think we've got a pretty good solid group right now that there's no reason we shouldn't play far into May and June.
Well, you've got a fun team, and obviously you're a big part of that, Coach, with the job you do. Always thank you for taking the time from the busy schedule to talk to us. You've always been kind to us, and we've always enjoyed having you on. You're one of our favorites to talk to. Thanks for doing this. Good luck, and look forward to seeing your team this season. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.